Would you like to learn how to turn your kitchen waste, your garden refuse, your leaves, and your grass clippings into this beautiful black gold? It is the perfect amendment to improve your soil structure and texture and its moisture holding capacity. So if you're interested, follow along and I'll show you how to make this free and valuable resource. Hey friends, it's one of my favorite days. It's the beginning of November. Every year about this time we collect leaves and a little bit of grass clippings with the bagger attachment on the mower. Not only do I use the leaves and grass for compost and leaf mold, I also use it to cover the empty beds in the garden. It's a wonderful way to cover the soil over the winter to prevent erosion. It also lasts throughout the winter and it serves as mulch in the spring for most of the growing season actually. I simply spread some aside and plant my plants right in it. And that has improved my soil immensely over the years. I've been doing this for well over a decade, and so I really enjoy the results. It is a trade-off. It does encourage overwintering of some insects, but I feel that that trade-off is actually pretty worth it in what it does for my soil. I tend to leave pests early in the spring, and that encourages the predators to come in and strike out that balance. And it is so rewarding to see plant material, kitchen waste, garden refuse, leaves and grass all become this beautiful black gold, this material that is full of nutrients and other benefits to the garden. Another way that it's a big benefit in the garden is when I don't particularly want to weed some of these beds. That thick layer of leaves will smother those out and pretty much takes care of them for me. So I'll be covering the garlic that I recently planted. I'll also be covering up these beds, and then anything left over will go into the compost. I'm actually looking forward to it. It's pretty chilly this morning, so that will warm me up. And so this is my setup. I have 2 different beds. Sometimes I divide it into 4 different sections depending on how many levels of compost that I have. And right now on this side, I have my older compost down on the bottom. A few weeks ago, we started collecting grass clippings and layered that on top. And so I'll be mixing some of that today as I turn that over into this bed. But first, what I want to do is take this existing compost here and fill up all the buckets that I can. I'll store those in the greenhouse over the winter. That's what will be my seed starting mix in the spring. So once this bed is cleared out, the easiest way to go about turning this pile rather than to stir everything in place, which I do from time to time, but when I have a large amount of organic matter to turn over, it's easier for me to transfer it from this bed into this bed. And that will put the newer stuff on the bottom and the older stuff on top. And then I'll sort of aerate it along the way and give everything a spritz of water. Then I will add the new leaves and clippings to this bed. Anytime I have large sticks like this, I just make sure that I break them into smaller pieces when I catch them. They're pretty soft. They've already started to decompose, break them apart pretty easily. The reason we want things broken down into small pieces is to increase the surface area for microbial action, and they'll break down a lot easier. In my garden, everything comes full circle. I harvest fruits and vegetables and herbs and compost the leftover scraps along with other organic material to make the compost. I then apply that rich compost back into the garden soil, and I use leaf mold as a natural mulch. This cyclical process creates a sustainable, closed-loop system that keeps nutrients on site rather than sending organic materials to the landfill. These practices encourage biodiversity, strengthen plant health, and reduce my reliance on outside inputs. When I first started gardening, I learned about hot composting. The first time I saw steam rising from the pile, I was hooked. Maintaining a hot compost pile requires regular turning, moisture control, and a balance of greens and browns to reach high temperatures, between 130 and 160 degrees Fahrenheit, to speed up decomposition and kill pathogens and weed seeds. With a good balance of green materials, a source of nitrogen, and brown materials, a source of carbon, hot composting can take up to 2 to 3 months. This process can be time-intensive and physically demanding, especially in larger gardens. For cold composting, where materials break down more passively with little to no turning, it typically takes 6 months to a year. This slower process results in more lingering seeds as it doesn't reach the temperatures necessary to kill them. I'm somewhere in between, primarily cold composting, but I do turn it a couple times a year and often add hot grass clippings first thing in the spring to heat things up. Microorganisms play a fundamental role in breaking down organic material as compost, transforming organic waste into a nutrient-rich soil amendment. These microbes work efficiently when the carbon to nitrogen ratio in the compost pile is balanced, ideally between 25 to 1 and 30 to 1. Carbon provides energy, while nitrogen helps build proteins that allow microbes to grow and reproduce. When this balance is right, microorganisms can break down materials more quickly, creating compost that improves soil structure by increasing its ability to hold water and air. Leaf mold is made from decomposed leaves that break down slowly over time. Unlike compost, it doesn't add a lot of nutrients, but it's amazing for improving soil structure, holding moisture, and creating a healthy environment for plants. Leaf mold usually takes 1 to 2 years to fully break down. It primarily relies on fungal decomposition, which is simply a slower process than bacterial decomposition in compost. And if desired, you can expedite this slightly by shredding the leaves and keeping them moist, but it's generally a long, slow process. Alternatively, you can add a source of nitrogen, like manure, grass clippings, or blood meal to enhance bacterial decomposition. I just cleaned out the chicken roost the other day, and they've been molting. So I've got plenty of feathers, which is full of protein and other nutrients, and then lots of their bedding, their shavings, and their manure. And this pile of leaves will sit here all winter and begin to decompose. And if I don't do anything extra, they will take a couple years to break down. I like to use the unfinished leaf mold as a mulch in both the garden and the greenhouse to retain moisture. It also reduces soil splashing up on the plants, helping to prevent soil-borne disease, and it can smother weeds. I found that applying a layer of leaf mold as mulch in the greenhouse greatly reduced the frequency of watering. Plus, it made everything look great. And since I applied it before it was fully decomposed, they lasted the entire growing season. In fact, there's still a layer on top. And of course, adding a thick layer to each of the garden beds has been a game changer. It reduces the need for pulling weeds in addition to conserving moisture and acting as a mulch through most of the growing season. This material is nearly as invaluable as compost, and I don't see myself ever going without it. Making compost or leaf mold do not have to be complicated processes. For best results, the pile should be at least 3 foot by 3 foot for good decomposition. You can use dedicated bins or even make it right in your garden beds like I do. Many people simply make a pile using fencing or even bags to contain it. If you use a trash bag, be sure to add holes for aeration and moisture if needed. Let me know if you have any questions or if I failed to cover something that you're curious about. I'm curious to know how you use compost or leaf mold in your gardens, or if you face any challenges. Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video. We'll see you next time.